Welcome to Days of Roar, the Detroit Tiger podcast brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Gorash. I am here with Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold. After just so much winning last week, I don't know if I can take it anymore. Just too much fun, a lot of lunch money taken. Tell me about it, Ev.
Mark, it's incredible. I mean, it's a 5-1 week for the Tigers. 3-0 against the Kansas City Royals at Kauffman Stadium, 2-1 against the Baltimore Orioles at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. The Tigers, as we sit here right now, have the third and final spot in the American League wildcard race with 6 games remaining in the regular season. The Tigers have a 70.7% chance to make the postseason, according to Fangraphs. On August 11th, that was just 43 days ago, the Tigers had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. Now they have a 70.7% chance to make it, only 6 games remaining. As of right now, like I said, they have that third and final AL wildcard spot in the hunt. If the season were to end today, here would be your American League playoff teams. The New York Yankees from the AL East, the Cleveland Guardians from the AL Central, the Houston Astros from the AL West, the Baltimore Orioles as the first wildcard team, the Kansas City Royals as the second wildcard team, and the Detroit Tigers as the third wild card team. Mark, 43 days ago, if I would have told you the Tigers are going to be in the playoff mix, they're going to be in the picture, not just like approaching the picture, but like actually in the playoff picture, what would you say?
I would have said that probably we'd been out partying too much.
I mean, 0.2% to 70.7% in 43 days.
It's, I've seen a lot of crazy Tiger stuff in my 60 plus years of doing this. I mean, going back to 1967, they lost on the last day of the year, 2009, 2006, when they basically, after a season long, of winning, tried to figure out how to stop winning in the last week, still made the World Series. There's a lot of crazy stuff, but, of all the down the stretch, unlikely, who knew, marches to a playoff berth, this has to be at the top of the pile. 27-11. They've thrown the KC Royals, who have played 6 months of tremendous baseball, into a weird and wonderful depression after their 3-game sweep. They have now lost 6 or 7 in a row. Ev, how many?
7 games in a row.
7 games in a row. They are now tied with the Detroit Tigers. And, I just don't have any words for what's gone on, but let's keep teeing these games up every day, because the Tigers seem to have a formula for how they like to win. They never feel like they're out of it. And, one loss never seems to discourage them. They seem to come back the next day, no matter who's on the mound. Even if it's nobody on the mound with an opener, they just keep winning.
And that's impressive too, right? Is because you go into Kansas City and you have to face Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans in games 1 and 2 of that series. And to win both of those games was huge. Then you can go into Wednesday's game knowing Tarek Skubal's on the mound for you, and that makes it feel like a sweep at that point when you're able to steal those first 2 games against Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans, and then you have Tarek Skubal going on the mound for you on Wednesday, and that's exactly what they did. Like, you go back to Monday's 7-6 win against the Royals. They were down 4-0 early. Bobby Witt Jr. had that grand slam, but the Tigers clawed back. 1 run in the 4th, 3 runs in the 5th, 3 runs in the 6th. Wenso Perez had a huge pinch hit double off the bench. Pretty much what this team has been all year. Guys coming up in big situations and delivering in big moments. And also team showing resiliency, showing fight, never giving up. These are the no-quit Tigers in 2024. They showed that Monday, and it set the tone for their entire week. You even look into Tuesday's game, it was a 3-1 win over the Royals in 10 innings. A balk from Lucas Erceg advanced the free runner in the 10th inning to third base with 1 out. Parker Meadows hits a single for a 2-1 lead. Riley Green adds a single, a little bit of insurance for a 3-1 lead. And then you have Wednesday's game. The Tigers did not waste a Tarek Skubal start. They had lost the last 2 starts that Tarek Skubal had on the mound. Now, it wasn't Tarik Skubal's fault they lost those games, but against the Rockies and against the A's, they did lose those games. Well, they win. They win a Tarik Skubal start, 4-2 on Wednesday to sweep the Royals. It was also a really big personal start for Skubal, too. He'd struggled a lot against the Royals in his career, especially against the Royals at Kauffman Stadium. It was amazing the way that his outing ended. He only went 5 innings, but as AJ Hinch said, sometimes 5 innings is more than enough. He struck out Salvador Perez, and that's his nemesis. That's his big nemesis. Salvi is the guy who has given him the most trouble among all players throughout his career. They've had a ton of great battles. Skubal has a ton of strikeouts on his side, but Salvi has a bunch of big hits, including, a handful of home runs on his side of the matchup as well. So Skubal gets the big strikeout. He lets out a huge roar, and that was just an incredible moment, both for Skubal and for the Tigers, as it really put a stamp on what was, eventually became a series sweep against the Royals. And then you go to Baltimore, and you have to face Corbin Burnes. Corbin Burnes shuts you down. Of course, he's done that, twice in 2 weeks. But the Tigers didn't let that get to him. They bounced back. And Saturday, my gosh, Mark, that 4-6 win on Saturday against the Orioles in 10 innings. Let's wait to talk about it, because let's just run through Sunday really quick, winning 4-3, 2 home runs from Kerry Carpenter, brilliant performances from Sean Gunther, Brendan Hanafy, Will Vest, Jason Foley to shut down the Orioles in the final 4+ innings. Guys like Sean Gunther, Brendan Hanafy, they have been the unsung heroes of this run, stepping up in so many big moments, always delivering, always having the right pitch in the right location at the right time. That's been really impressive. So yeah, guys like Sean Gunther, Brendan Hanafy, Bo Brisky, we're about to talk about him, don't worry. Those guys all deserve so much love for what they're doing. A lot gets made about the openers and the bulk relievers, but don't forget about the Sean Gunthers of the world who are making a huge difference for the Tigers, eating up some important innings and winning huge matchups. Like Sean Gunther was DFA not too long ago, and the Tigers had picked him up and rehabbed him from Tommy John, and then he was in Toledo, and now here he is suddenly, and he's locked down. But we can't forget about what happened in Saturday's game. It was a 6-4 win over the Orioles in 10 innings, and it might have been the coolest baseball game that I've ever watched, just considering the way that everything unfolded. You had the Baltimore Orioles storming back and it was incredible. It was the bottom of the 9th inning. Jason Foley's on the mound, and it was single walk to load the bases, and then Gunnar Henderson comes up, and Gunnar Henderson, it's a 2-run game tying double, 4-4 Orioles Tigers. Jason Foley gets pulled out of the game, and Bo Brisky has to come in, and Bo Brisky comes in with runners on 2nd and 3rd, nobody out, in a tie game in the bottom of the 9th. He's got to get 3 outs without allowing that runner from 3rd to score. He has to face Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, and Colton Cowser, 3 of the best hitters in the Orioles lineup aside from Gunnar Henderson. Cedric Mullins grounds out, so he's safe there. There's 1 out. And then what happened with Anthony Santander, that was just incredible. So he hits this pop-up, and it's going into shallow left field, and you have Trey Sweeney, the shortstop, and Riley Green, the left fielder. They're both going after the ball at the same time, and it's in shallow left field. Riley Green slides because he sees Trey Sweeney coming, and Riley had said, we're taught to slide on these kind of plays because you have to slide to avoid the big collision. That's the last thing that you want is a big collision. So if one guy's going high, the other guy's got to go low. Riley slides low. Trey Sweeney stays on his feet. He makes an over-the-head catch, and he tumbles to the ground, falling over Riley Green's feet, gets the wind knocked out of him, holds onto the ball, also has the understanding of, hey, I just got the wind knocked out of me, and I just made this incredible catch. I have to then throw it into the infield to make sure that Jackson Holliday doesn't tag from 3rd and score. It was the season-saving catch from Trey Sweeney. It was the most incredible thing that I have ever witnessed, seeing him go back out on the ball, make the catch, and then there's 2 outs. Colton Cowser flies out to center fielder Parker Meadows, and that ends the 9th inning, strands the 2 runners. Bo Brisky gets the job done. Trey Sweeney saves the day with his catch, and then the Tigers get the job done in the top of the 10th inning, and they win 6-4. That was incredible, Mark. What was that like for you watching that game, and specifically watching that catch, watching Bo Brisky navigate those 3 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning after Jason Foley gave up the 2 runs? Where were you at for all of that?
Well, I'm watching. It seems like it's going to be a pretty formulaic Tigers win. They played well the entire day. Foley walks in from the bullpen, and all of a sudden, a rally out of nowhere, he's, you know, and let's also say to those that are upset with Jason Foley, at that point in time, he had allowed a run in one of his last 20 outings. It's not like Jason Foley was not throwing well. He was throwing supremely well. Proceeds to give up 2 runs, and here comes Bo Brisky from the bullpen, seemingly for like the 26th straight day in a row, whether he's starting a game, whether he's pitching the 7th and the 8th inning, whether he's closing a game. It's like Bo Brisky all the time. It's like the Bo Brisky channel. And all he's doing is somehow in the middle of spraying pitches, making comeback pitches all in the same outing. It's like you don't even know what to say. Once he retired Mullins, I said to myself, well, there's actually now a path to get out of the inning. And then he does. And, you know, the Trey Sweeney catch, I tell you, it was the best catch, the most game-saving catch of the season. If Parker Meadows hadn't been playing for the Detroit Tigers this year and made game-saving catches even more spectacular or hit grand slam home runs in 9th inning.
I mean, Mark, there's catch of the year from Parker Meadows. Like we've seen that time and time again. But this catch saved the season. I mean, that ball drops in. You lose back-to-back games against the Orioles. You have to go into Sunday, and you know that you need the win. Pressure's on. The whole series could have been different. I mean, the whole season could have been different if you really think about it. I mean, if they lose 2 games in a row to the Orioles, you feel a lot different, both as a team and obviously as an observer going into that Sunday series finale. Instead, they win Saturday. They take all the momentum into Sunday, and they get the job done to win 2 of 3. Like, yes, Parker Meadows, you are incredible. Time and time again, you have amazed us. But Trey Sweeney, man, Trey Sweeney. I mean, that is a season-saving catch, something that I've never seen before like that. Like this is Team of Destiny type stuff. It's just all the right things are happening at all the right times. This feels like Team of Destiny, and it's starting to feel more and more like, hey, how deep can they make a run in the postseason? It's not just like, hey, can they get in? It really starting to feel like, hey, how deep can this team actually go?
Well, all I can say is we've had a lot of postseason experience, both, in a good and a bad way. So before I start worrying about the postseason, I want to get to the postseason. You got 6 more games left.
I know.
I do smell the first Evan Petzold book, which will be about these last 2 months of the 2024 season, which I cannot wait to see you write because it is book material. And I think we need to tip our hat to Trey Sweeney, who prior to being traded to the Detroit Tigers had never hit above 256 in the minor leagues. All of a sudden catches fire at Toledo and goes on a heater, gets recalled, does a few things, slumps, and now for the last 3 weeks cannot seem to stop getting big hits, out of the 6, 7, 8 hole in the Tiger lineup and just being so steady in the field. And my answer to that is, who knew? Who knew? And, we're going to talk later about the impact of some of these guys on their 2025 possibilities of being rostered by the Detroit Tigers, guys like Trey Sweeney and Sean Gunther. But, it's, like I said, looking forward to that Evan Petzold book. So, all right. So let's try to get to the rest of the podcast today. So we're going to go to question 1 of the big 2. If the season ended right now, and that would be kind of fun, the Tigers would be in the postseason, but there's 6 games remaining. What do we think is going to happen this week, Ev?
It's going to be a lot of fun, Mark. I know it's going to be packed for the weekend series against the Chicago White Sox, but I also hope that the fans show up for the weekday series against the Tampa Bay Rays. A lot has to still go right for the Tigers. Like, there are still so many tiebreakers in play. It's important to note the schedule. Tigers have 3 games against the Tampa Bay Rays at Comerica Park and then 3 games against the Chicago White Sox at Comerica Park. The Rays come in with a 78-78 record, riding a 4-game winning streak. They have yet to be eliminated. They need to keep winning games. They know it. Their manager, Kevin Cash, has talked about it. They're coming into Comerica Park. They feel like with something to play for, that's going to be a very interesting series. especially with the Rays riding that 4-game winning streak. I got a lot of respect for Kevin Cash and the way that he manages. I think there's anybody that can go toe-to-toe with AJ Hinch in terms of making the chess moves and putting the pieces down. If there's a manager who can try his best to counter and keep up with AJ Hinch, it's Kevin Cash. A lot of guys, AJ Hinch, like, perfect example. Chicago White Sox, they have Grady Sizemore in as their interim manager. AJ Hinch will run circles around him as he did on the south side of Chicago when the Tigers were there just recently. Kevin Cash is a guy who's going to be tough to keep up with. But yeah, Rays have a 78-78 record, riding a 4-game winning streak. Chicago White Sox, they have a 36-120 record, joining the 1962 Mets for the most losses in modern baseball history, and passing the 2003 Tigers for the American League record. The 2003 Tigers, as we all know, had 119 losses. The White Sox have 6 games remaining. How many will they win? That's a really good question. But that's what the Tigers have on tap. 3 games against the Rays, 3 games against the White Sox. The tiebreaker scenarios, we have to talk about those. 2-way ties, Royals over Tigers, Twins over Tigers, but Tigers over Mariners and Tigers over Orioles. Tigers over Orioles for seeding purposes. Tigers over Mariners. That would be for, that final spot in the wild card. And then Royals over Tigers and Twins over Tigers. That could be either for seeding or to keep the Tigers out of the playoffs if the Royals and Twins suddenly decide to heat up. But man, oh man, they've been playing really bad baseball. 3-way ties, Twins, Royals, Tigers. And then we have Tigers, Twins, Mariners. And then we have Tigers, Orioles, Royals. And then we have Tigers, Orioles, Mariners. And then we have Tigers, Orioles, Twins. So the Tigers in 3-way ties should feel pretty good about themselves unless they're in a 3-way tie with the Twins and the Royals. It's really the only situation the Tigers are not coming out on top in these tiebreakers. If it's Royals and Twins, or individually Royals and individually Twins, the Tigers are in a bad spot. Anybody else, Tigers are in a great spot because they went out and they took care of business against the Mariners. They've taken care of business against the Orioles. And then when you combine, those teams together, the Tigers have taken care of business as a whole. So they're in a pretty good spot unless they're standalone with Twins and Royals. That puts them in a bad spot. When we look at what other teams have going on, I like to focus on what the Twins and Royals are doing. I think, worrying about what the Orioles are doing for seeding, we'll get there when we need to get there. Worrying about what the Mariners are doing, they still have a ways to go to climb back into things. Twins, Royals, those are the 2 teams we got to be watching for throughout the entire week. The Twins have 3 games against the Miami Marlins at Target Field, and then 3 games against the Baltimore Orioles at Target Field. So the Twins finish up at home with 3 games against the Marlins and 3 games against the Orioles. And then the Royals, they finish with 3 games against the Washington Nationals at Nationals Park and 3 games against the Atlanta Braves at Truist Park. So they finish up 3 games against the Nationals, 3 games against the Braves. Those are the schedules for both the Royals and for the Twins. The Tigers, though, they control their own destiny at this point. Like, if the Tigers win out, they're in no matter what happens. That's the best spot that you want to be in. The Tigers also have another little advantage because they have a guy named Tarek Skubal, and they have a guy named Tarek Skubal who is ready to pitch game 162, the season finale against the Chicago White Sox if needed. If not, he's going to start the first game of the wild card round. But if the Tigers get to that last game of the season and they need a win to get into the playoffs, they can hand the ball to Tarek Skubal on 4 days rest, and they can tell their ace to go get the job done. I think that's an even more added bonus on top of the fact that the Tigers, like we're talking about, over a 70% chance to make the playoffs at this point. So the card's already in their favor. They also have Tarek Skubal in their back pocket that they can pull out for that last game of the season if they need him. Things are on the up and up. I really like the Tigers' chances, especially when you consider they're playing a team that has 120 losses right now and might have 123 losses when they come to town in the Chicago White Sox.
Well, all I can say is in the last 6 games, Dirks Skubal on pace to throw 2 times. Couldn't set up much better. Not in the prediction business. I think I'm going to take the AJ Hinch theory of how this team plays, and let's just lace them up every day and see what happens. They take them 1 game at a time. Mark Wash is going to take it 1 game at a time. Just keep playing the exact same way they've been playing, and things will take care of themselves. So, all right, let's get to question 2. of the big two. Are these guys developing into a legit core for the 2025 season?
That's such a good question. It's a great question, and it's a great thought because, you do have to look ahead and you have to wonder, okay, like this is happening, this is real. Whether they make it or they don't make it, how should we feel going into next season and also in years ahead too? Like, why can't this be a core for 2026 too, right? Like maybe this could be the core. I think it's important to look at what the Tigers have done since August 11th. Since August 11th, the Tigers have a 27-11 record in 38 games. That's 23.5% of the season. So if you look at the position playing side during that stretch, because Tarek Skubal, he's worth 1.5 F4 during that stretch. You have Kerry Carpenter worth 1.2 F4, which would be 5.1 in a full season. Parker Meadows at 1.1. That's 4.7 in a full season. Zach McKinstry at 0.9. That's 3.8 in a full season. Riley Green at 0.8. That's 3.4 in a full season. Jake Rogers at 0.7. That's 3 in a full season. Trey Sweeney, 0.6. That's 2.6 in a full season. Cole Keith at 0.6. That's also 2.6 in a full season. Spencer Torkelson at 0.4. That's 1.7 in a full season. That's pretty surprising, by the way. And Jace Young at 0.2. That's 0.8 F4 in a full season. So if you look at the Tigers needing to get to 40 WAR, we talk about that all the time. We do that exercise a ton, especially in the offseason. Kerry Carpenter, 5.1 in this stretch if you were to blow it up over a full season. Parker Meadows at 4.7. Zach McKinstry at 3.8. Riley Green at 3.4. Jake Rogers at 3. Trey Sweeney, 2.7. Cole Keith, 2.7. Spencer Torkelson, 1.7. Jace Young, 0.8. Like, do the math. You can start getting to 40 WAR pretty quickly when you factor in what the Tigers have on the pitching side. So I think maybe, you go into the offseason, you have to ask yourself some critical questions. Like, is Jace Young your third baseman of the future? I'm okay with giving him some runway and keeping Matt Vierling in the mix. Like, how bad is a Jace Young, Matt Vierling platoon? Really? I mean, Jace Young being a left-handed hitter, Matt Vierling being a right-handed hitter. I don't think that's a terrible platoon situation. I like that, situation at third base for the Tigers moving forward into 2025. So I'm interested to see, what more can Jace Young give you? And I think we know what Matt Vierling can provide. And, Matt Vierling's put up really steady numbers, like extremely steady numbers. He's kind of been one of the glue guys in that lineup, getting the job done consistently. And he's a leader in the clubhouse as well as the guy who's been to the World Series before. Let's not forget that. Matt Vierling is a very important piece. And can Jace Young find his way? Maybe, but he might need some runway and some help to get there in a platoon role. And we'll see if he can settle in as an everyday guy. I'm okay with that if you address the real issue, like is Spencer Torkelson. Is he your first baseman of the future? What we're seeing from Torkelson right now, like I mentioned, 0.4 F4 going back to August 11th, which is 1.7 over a full season. That's not terrible. You'll take that. But is that sustainable? I'm not so certain. And so when you look at, first base, is it Christian Walker, Rhys Hoskins, Carlos Santana, Spencer Torkelson? That's kind of in order from most expensive to least expensive. How do the Tigers address that position? They're also going to need a starting pitcher who they can fix, like a Michael Lorenzen or a Jack Flaherty. Can we get somebody like that again to fix and either flip or keep for a deep postseason push? How about a legit closer who they don't need to fix? Think like Tanner Scott, the lefty from the Padres, somebody like that they can go out. They don't need to fix. They can insert him right into the back end. I would also like to see them go get a right-handed hitting corner outfielder, whether it's Tyler O'Neill or Anthony Santander. But I would also understand if the Tigers didn't go that direction just based on how much they like Parker Meadows and Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter. You just hope those guys can stay healthy. I think there are still holes, but when you consider what they've done since August 11th and the full body of work for guys like Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green, maybe there is a legit core here that you can look into the future and say, yup, this is our group. I don't know what you do at first base, but do you feel pretty good about Cole Keith at second base? Yeah, let's run it back there. I think offensively, yes. Defensively, let's run it back and let's see what he has in year 2. I think he's been a lot better as of late at second base. He struggled early on, but he's been much better. Shortstop, you ride with Trey Sweeney? Why not? Let's ride with Trey Sweeney and see what happens. The platoon of Vierling and Jace Young at third base, go for it. Catcher, Dylan Dingler, Jake Rogers. Not a ton with the bat yet for either of those guys, but you know what? They call great games, and they're steady behind the plate. That's as good as you're going to get. You take that all day. You take guys that are absolutely steady. They're great pitch callers. They know their pitchers. Those are really important things. And then you look in the outfield and you have Riley Green and Parker Meadows and Kerry Carpenter. Like, you feel pretty good about that group. So yeah, maybe the Tigers do have a core, especially with the emergence of Parker Meadows being a lockdown center fielder. I feel good about this group going into 2025. Could they upgrade first base? Yeah, I'd like to see that happen. Do they need to upgrade third base? Maybe not. Like, maybe not. Maybe this group can do it. And I like what we've seen so far. It's given me a lot of optimism moving forward that I previously didn't have, considering the way that this group has come together and won so many games here down the stretch.
Well, we're going to have a long, cold offseason to delve into some of these things in more detail. But even me, who is a well-known not Matt Vierling lover, if I were to analyze how Scott Harris assembles teams, I'll be shocked if Matt Vierling is not considered to be the third baseman of the 2025 Detroit Tigers right now, with some time in the outfield, and the Tigers pursue an actual reliable, good hitting first baseman. I think Spencer Torkelson's days as a Tiger are numbered. The last 70 at bats have been pretty atrocious, much like most of the first part of this season, the first part of the 2023 season, all of the 2022 season. He probably does have some rehab trade value. That's what we'll refer to it as. Somebody else will be happy to give some consideration to Spencer Torkelson, but as a core member of the Tigers in 2025, pretty unlikely. Is Trey Sweeney going to be the shortstop? Almost guarantee you he will start the season at shortstop. Javi Baez, rehabbing from a hip injury, is going to have to prove himself to be A, healthy, and B, competent at the plate. I think the honeymoon phase of Javi Baez getting an opportunity to play every day just because they're paying him $25 million a year is over, and there's likely an underlying insurance policy on that contract that he signed 3 years ago, and it's about to start paying if he does not play because of health reasons, and I think everybody ignores that little subtlety, and I think it's going to be hard for him to get on the field if the Tigers don't feel he's healthy, because they may be able to defray part of the cost of Javi Baez before he is likely bought out, DFA'd, etc., which is probably a good possibility at this point in time, unless he shows spectacular resurgence in health where he can hit like the old Javi Baez. I mean, and I don't mean like the Javi Baez of, 2019. I mean the Javi Baez who could at least hit 18 homers, drive in 65 runs, and play good defense. I think that would be a very interesting thing for 2025, but hard to believe. I do think Matt Vierling is probably at the top of the pile to play third base for a lot of reasons. Also because the Tigers need right-hand hitting, and he's shown to be a slightly below average defender at third. And let's be honest about Matt Vierling. Matt Vierling has gotten better each year he's been with the Tigers, and there's no reason to think that he may not improve a little bit more in his age 28 season next year. Is as much as I kind of bang on him, if he's hitting 6th or 7th and playing third base, probably a decent placeholder until they can improve on that. And the Tigers are just not up for spending lots of money. Now, Christian Walker at first base, maybe for 3 years and $18 million, they can afford that, and that makes a lot of sense for them. Great defender, great power hitter, would be a perfect fit for what they're doing. And, I never worry about the starting pitching part. Scott Harris and his staff have been very, very good at making decisions about what that is. And as last season I was asking for Ronaldo Lopez to be the closer, we'll go into the same, aspect this offseason. Any type of high-end closer only makes the Tigers a better team. Then you have Jason Foley and the amazing Tyler Holton, pitching leverage in the bullpen. I asked yesterday, Tyler Holton's stuff is so good now, you almost wonder if he'd be a good starting pitcher. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that helps them because he's so important in leverage and so useful as a Swiss Army knife it's probably better to leave him alone. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, we got a lot of off-season to discuss this stuff, but things have changed since August 11th, and wanting Alex Bregman and other players that are pretty high on our list. I think the other thing we need to also emphasize is if you haven't been paying attention, when Seal Perez comes back from injury, what does he do, Ev? He goes straight back into the lineup, hitting third. So if you're not paying attention to how much AJ Hinch admires, loves, and likes to use Wensil Perez, then you're kind of missing how he manages and how much he respects how good of a player Wensil Perez has become for the Detroit Tigers. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have Andy Dirks. We'll be back in 60.
All right, I'd like to welcome Andy Dirks, TV analyst for the Detroit Tigers on Bally Sports Detroit, to the Days of Roar podcast for the first time. Andy doesn't need much of an introduction, but just as a refresher for our listeners, he played for the Tigers in 2011, 2012, and 2013, including a total of 18 games in the postseason across those 3 seasons. He even played in all 4 games in the 2012 World Series. Andy, thanks for joining us for the most important week of games in the regular season, the final week.
The final week's always the most important until you make it, and then every game after that's important too. But thanks for bringing up I played in only 4 games in the World Series because that's all we had.
Yeah, all 4 games in the World Series, but you were in those
4
games
and we didn't end up sweeping them, but those are great memories, minus that.
For sure. Andy, take us through this, man. Like, what has this run been like from your vantage point in the broadcast booth? Like, you're in there every day, grinding away. You know, kind of same as me. I'm there in the press box, grinding away every day. What has it been like for you watching this magical run as it's gone since, say, mid-August?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of baseball in my life. I've rarely seen a team that is always against the odds, just constantly, and come back and perform and win, and come back and make a big play, and come back and get a big hit. And they had that in them earlier in the season. You saw a lot of resilience even early in the season when they were dinged up, banged up, kind of trying to find a lineup that might work, that might produce runs consistently, and just could never quite get everything clicking. Pitching's been fairly solid. It had a few ibs and woes, kind of mid-season in the bullpen. But over the course of the season, we knew that pitching and defense was going to be a strength. And that was kind of what we were relying on. And then with the lineup, I think going into the trade deadline, it was like pretty much understood we had to get youthful in a couple spots that weren't as youthful and weren't producing up to the caliber that they needed to produce, did that. And then just kind of rode this wave of a lot of young energy, guys going out and just playing like they want to be in the big leagues, playing like they don't care about what other people think, not zero fear. I mean, it's amazing to see the amount of young guys come up and just get after it. I know we just were in Baltimore and we saw Jackson Holliday, who is only 20 and has struggled, mightily. And you see a guy like that, it's a little different feel to his game right now. Now, granted, he's going to be a really good player, I think. But then you see the Tigers young guys like the Trey Sweeneys and guys come up and they just play completely fearless and just get after it. It's kind of a cultural thing that's in the clubhouse right now, and it's producing really exciting baseball.
Andy, talk to us a little bit about, what ends up happening when you're in a pennant race like this and you just have to take it day by day. I mean, it's almost inning by inning, at bat by at bat. And you have a team, and it's kind of unusual in the major leagues, but I mean, on Saturday, AJ used 4 different hitters at DH. And the roulette that he plays, I call him the puppet master, because the same kind of strategic advantage he tries to create in the bullpen. And what's it like to be a player knowing that at any point, any time, you're going to get called on to do your thing? And, even guys like Terry Carpenter with a 900 plus OPS get pinch hit for.
I mean, these guys understand from Jump Street that the team, the way it's been managed, the team, the way it's been developed, that this is the way this team operates. This isn't like in the last month, all of a sudden, AJ started pinch hitting, for the first time throughout the whole season. And even the season before, and even since AJ's been here, he's made it very clear, like we're looking to win each game, take one game at a time. And the guys that are kind of the core group, you had mentioned like Matt Bierlein, but guys who have been kind of through the process, Torkelson, Carpenter, a little bit more than some of the brand new guys that just came up, they understand very well that anybody can get pinch hit for at any given time, which takes the ego out of it, right? There's zero ego on this team. Guys, of course, when you get pinch hit for, there's always going to be a little bit of, man, I wish I could get up there and get after it. But on the next note, your thought goes to, well, I want this guy to perform well, and I want to win the game. And if it's not me today, it'll be somebody else. It'll be me tomorrow. It's somebody else today. And that's what we've seen with this team. So I think, first of all, AJ has stuck to his guns. He has a vision for the team. Him and Scott have a vision for the team. They haven't wavered from that at all, which is hard to do when there's lots of noise. They said, we want to get young. We want to get athletic. We want options. We want to have guys that can rotate in. I want players to come in off the bench. I don't care if it's the third inning or the ninth inning. We're not going to have a quote unquote closer role. Our bullpen's going to be very fluid. Look at that. They love it. Our bullpen's going to be fluid. We're going to be able to use guys in a lot of different ways. Tyler Holton's thrown over 85 innings for the second year in a row. Bo Brisky's been amazing. Will Vest, and then you can go on a litany of the bullpen guys, and Foley, and besides him, Gunther and all the other guys that have contributed. Most teams can't do what the Tigers are doing right now. The personnel wouldn't allow it. Most teams don't have a Wenzel Perez. Most teams don't have a Jahan that can come in off the bench and hit right-handed and have a decent at bat, even though he hasn't had a bat in a week. He got hit by a pitch yesterday and got on base, right? Most teams don't have the versatility that the Tigers have with McKinstry, with Vierling being able to play multiple positions. He's a center fielder that also plays third. Most guys don't have a right-handed bat in Andy Ibanez, who's done pretty good against lefties this year. And you see Cole Keith come off the bench after he banged up his right shoulder a little bit to pinch hit for Torkelson, which Torkelson hadn't been pinch hit for all year, but you see the magnitude of the moments. AJ will bring in anybody that he thinks is a good matchup in that situation, and we put all feelings and ego aside, and we do what's best for the team to win in that moment. That's what he does.
I think that's really interesting, too. Like, Kerry Carpenter, perfect example, right? Like, if there's runners on base, it could be very tempting to leave Kerry Carpenter in the game to face a left-handed pitcher to prey on that 3-run home run, but AJ won't do it. AJ will go to Andy Ibanez, who he trusts against left-handed pitchers, because Andy Ibanez is better than Kerry Carpenter against lefties. Andy Ibanez doesn't have the same home run potential as Kerry Carpenter, but you're going to trust Andy Ibanez to get the hit in the big moment, move the line, keep things going, and hand the baton to the next guy. I think it's interesting when you mention, like it's easy to fall into the trap of like, oh, just, giving Kerry Carpenter that at bat, but AJ sticks to his guns. Andy, how much does that speak to like the plan, right? Because every time, team goes into the season, they have a plan, they get their pieces, you come out of spring training, you see what you have, and there's always injuries along the way. But when you talk about personnel and roster construction, like how much does that maybe speak to what Scott Harris and AJ Hinch were able to build to prepare for situations like this, to be able to execute in the big moments like this? And do those guys kind of deserve, the tip of the cap just for putting this group together and then allowing that to kind of, become what it's been?
I think they deserve the tip of the cap to get them winning as quickly as they are. I mean, just get it straight. Like, you look at this lineup versus other lineups in the big leagues. It's like some of it's not comparable at times, right? I mean, that's just the truth. Like if you look at numbers and line up two lineups, like a manager would love to be able to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, bum, 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 bum. Every day I put those guys in and I set it and forget it. And I know those guys are going to produce and we're going to score 5 runs a game, right? Like managers don't mind that either. But the way that this has developed with the youth and the movement of the Tigers to try to rebuild this organization is we don't want to just sit around and get lazy and bring up guys and just leave them up there and put them in the 4-hole every single game and nobody behind them ever pushing the envelope to make the performance level rise for everybody. So in the interim, Trey Sweeney is a pretty good shortstop. Trey Sweeney is going to get a lot of at-bats. Parker Meadows is making his strides in the big leagues. Once you start getting these pieces, pretty soon you have a lineup that Parker Meadows leads off 145 games out of the year, right? If he stays healthy. and Trey Sweeney will play 155 games at shortstop. So then you start seeing these pieces. Riley Green will play 145 games in left field, right? So those are the pieces that you're seeing that start to stabilize. We just haven't had a lot of stabilization lately, but we still have other pieces that they're not stable yet. So until those are stabilized and you can trust that this guy can go out and do this on a daily basis, you're going to have to do a lot of mix and matching. Now, AJ is racking his brain and Scott are racking their brain daily. Let's figure out how to win with what we have now, get these guys confidence so that way they can become that stabilized player, right? And that's kind of, we're just now getting to see a little bit of success for some of these guys where, hey, these are pieces. We're building a core, this young group of core guys, right? And we got some guys in the minor leagues that aren't bad as well. And then developing a core group of guys is not easy. Why? Because the big leagues is stinking hard, man. Like, you can hit really good for a month and hit really bad for 2 months. And you're like, what is management supposed to do with that? There's just so many variables.
You played, mostly corners in your career, but you did play a pretty decent amount of center field, I think, in your life. So talk to us a little bit about Parker Meadows.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best center fielder in the big leagues defensively right now. I mean, anybody wants to challenge me on that, I'm more than happy to look at film. We can review. I love the StatCast, is great, but some of the catch probabilities on some of these balls, I'm like, I've seen so much baseball. I played in the outfield. I played next to Austin Jackson, who was one of the best center fielders in the big leagues. Would have won a Gold Glove more if he hit more. That's just part of winning a Gold Glove is you got to hit. But the catches that he makes, the routes that he takes, his length, like how many center fielders, Aaron Judge other than Parker Meadows, would be the second tallest center fielder in the big leagues, right? Aaron Judge don't cover no ground compared to Parker Meadows. And Parker Meadows does it in Comerica Park. He does it in the Central where you got to go play in Kauffman. And then he turns around and plays Baltimore. He plays the wall perfectly and robs a home run. Diving catches. It's like every other day it's a game-saving catch. Like the impact that he has in center field with runs saved is astronomical. So, yeah, I'm a Parker Meadows fan. I think he can cover ground out there.
Plus, he throws the ball pretty well, too. I don't think people realize what a good arm for a center fielder Parker Meadows also has. So he hasn't had to use it that much, but he throws very, very well.
Andy, I'm interested, too. You mentioned, the changes within the game over time, right? Like, what's working for the Tigers right now? Like, what do you see within their approach? Because it does seem like, guys have done a really good job of being selective aggressive, right? Like knowing what zones they want to attack and being able to go after them and get to them. And, we talk time and time again about how good the pitching has been, especially during this run. It's been incredible, best in baseball. But you still have to score runs. The Tigers have done a good job of finding ways to score runs. What stands out to you about the offense, especially over the last, 40 games or so, as they've gotten hot and made this playoff push a real thing?
Length of lineup first. So we were dinged up. No Kerry Carpenter, no Trey Sweeney.
Like Riley was down for a while.
Yep. Riley was down for a while. Torkelson got sent down to Toledo. Like we had some massive holes, right? McKinstry wasn't swinging the bat as well. So for a while it was our length of lineup. And what happens in a lineup, the way to score runs is you got 9 guys in a lineup. You need 1 through 9. Through 1 through 9, you need like 7 or 8 quality at bats through that lineup to produce runs because consistently. And this was the issue wasn't, hey, we'd score 11 runs in a game, but then we go 3 games where we score 1, right? And that's frustrating. And it's like, why is this happening? You have to have a lineup that continually puts pressure on pitchers and defenses. Long balls are going to happen. We don't have like 4 guys with 25 plus home runs, right? That's just not the way our team is, and that's fine. Everybody's got different superpowers. We're way more athletic than those teams. So then you got to determine what is a quality at bat. If you can determine what a quality at bat is for a team and they can understand, because if you're just solely predicating your existence as a major league hitter on outcome, oh boy, there's going to be some depressing days. Right? Like that's when you're driving to go through the drive-through at Taco Bell asking the guy like, hey, what do you think I should do? How do you think I should hold my hands? Because you can't find a rhythm. So quality at bat, it's not necessarily about getting a hit. It's about, okay, did I go up there with a plan? Step 1. What was that plan? Well, it's going to depend on who I'm facing. What's the best chance I have to get a hit off this guy or do damage? Step 2 is early in the count, you're looking to hammer the ball. Get a good pitch and take a rip. This has been the philosophy of all hitters. Hit it to the big part of the field. Drive the ball to the big part of the field. Then I get down in the count. Now I got to shorten up. You look to put the ball in play up the middle somewhere. Make something happen. Extend the at-bat. Foul off tough pitches. And what we've seen the Tigers doing is the length of the lineup is now better. With, we have more guys that are putting together quality at-bats, and they're putting tons of pressure on pitchers. Even the outs that they're making. Hey, loud out to left, line out to left. 14 hop ground ball up the middle. Guy's got to make a great play on it. Next guy gets up. 8 pitches, he walks. Next guy gets up, hits a ground ball, ends up being a double play. Oh man! But what did you see that whole inning? Pressure. The Tigers were terrible at hitting the fastball 2 years ago. The fastball was just like kryptonite. And if you can't hit that pitch, you're not going to succeed as a team. They've gotten much better at hitting the fastball. When you hit the fastball off a pitcher, or whatever their primary pitch is, usually it's the fastball, they're wanting to establish that. You get a hit off that, you get a couple even loud outs, the pitcher now has to adjust. He's not just going to sit there and throw you the same pitch over and over if you just hit it. So now these pitchers are having to think more, which means more labor. The catcher back there is trying to make sure that they're calling the right pitch, right location. It gets scary. Like the reason when you face a guy like Ohtani, it's really tough is because you're trying to figure out what can we even throw to get him out. And you see pitchers start laboring. You see defenses that are a little more nervy, right? And that's pressure. So the goal of an offense is to constantly put pressure on the defense. Then when you get on the bases, run the bases, put pressure all over the bags, first to third, still in bags. And this is why the Tigers have been successful. Quality up bats up and down the order and run the bases like banshees.
Okay, so they're successful, offensively, right? And they're putting pressure on pitching and defense. And we've seen that translate to the results, right? When you look at going back to August 11th, 27-11 in 38 games. Like, this is an incredible run that they're on. I don't know if you've ever been a part of a run like this where you were pretty much considered out of the playoffs and suddenly, you're in with a week left. But you have been on teams that have been like red hot before. What is this like as a player? Like when you're going to work every day and your team is just this good and you just can't lose, it feels like. What is that like? What is the vibe like as a player? That's something that I can't understand. Mark has no idea what that is like. But you've been in that clubhouse before on a red hot team. What is that like?
You just have absurd confidence. You don't care if things go wrong for a minute because you know you're going to win. Like it doesn't matter who you're playing. The starting pitcher doesn't matter. Like, of course, you're going to prepare. Whether you're facing a Cy Young Award guy that's going to win the Cy Young, or the guy who just got called up from AAA, you're there to bang. You're there to hit. You're there to get after it. And you know that everybody else in the lineup is, and you don't want to be the guy that's dragging the lineup down. That's one thing. When you see players elevate in a lineup or in a bullpen, other guys get into the mix. Now, all of a sudden, these guys that are in the mix, you start to see them perform better. Why? Because they don't want to be the guy that drags everybody down. I never wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be the guy that made something happen. If it wasn't offensively, I was going to do it defensively. I wanted to contribute to a win. And that's what good teams do. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to go get my 2 hits today and whatever. It's like, no, I don't want to be the guy when you look up at the board that's hitting $150. I don't want to be the bullpen pitcher that's getting lit when everybody else is shoving, right? And that's where athletes thrive, in environments where there's good competition. There's guys that are getting after it and producing and performing. Athletes do not thrive when there's a bunch of prima donna negative Nancys who are just there and, going kind of through the motions and not getting after it. So what we've seen is even with the bullpen guys that come up for the Tigers, you go into that bullpen now, those guys got a chip on their shoulder. They do things a certain way. They take pride in what that bullpen produces as a whole. We were in Kansas City. I was sitting down in the lobby talking to a guy that came and saw me, and the whole Tigers bullpen started coming down at about 10:30, and then they're going out to breakfast. That's not normal, by the way. That is not normal. Usually guys are going about their own days, whatever. They got families, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for a whole bullpen to get together and go out and eat breakfast and hang out, that means they like each other off the field. That means they have a bond off the field, which then correlates and translates on the field. They're all pulling for one another. They want each other to succeed. But yeah, winning solves a lot of problems, man.
Andy, last question I have for you. 3 games against the Rays, 3 games against the White Sox. Look, you won 3 AL Central titles in a row, but these Tigers in 2024 have been playing postseason caliber baseball for several weeks, scratching and clawing, trying to get in. What is this last week going to be like?
For the players?
For everyone.
Well, it's fun. I'll tell you that, because we haven't been here in a minute. But for the players, it's a time to just go explode. Just go get after it. They're going to play the way they've been playing. There's no reason for them not to. Handled all the pressure and stress that they needed to up to this point. I don't see why they wouldn't continue that. But I'm looking for them to come into Comerica and absolutely rock it out. I mean, because they finally got to a position where they're in control. It's no longer like you have to wait on Kansas City or Minnesota. Now it's 100% on them, which actually feels good, because now you kind of control your own destiny. So they have to be riding a confidence level that they've never had in their life. I guarantee they do. Like, the relaxed confidence that they're playing with right now that's winning baseball, man. I've seen it. And there's certain times in sports history that you look through and you go, I don't know if anything could stop it. You see some of the bounces, some of the rolls on double play, some of the kicks here and there. Like, when a team's doing what they're doing, you got to get some of those too. Like the balls, like Parker robs the home run. If that's a foot further, he can't get it. And you see these things kind of playing out in front of your own eyes, and you go, something really special's happening here. And I do believe that if the intent is there, you can will things to go in your favor. You can 100% will them to go and not in your favor. Like, I have yet to see one of these Tigers players complain, whine when things didn't go their way. Because there's times that's happened. Like, everybody thinks, oh, this has just been every bounce. Like, no, there's things that have not went their way at all. And they have been extremely resilient to just keep going and keep fighting. But to say it's exciting is not a good enough word. There's not a word in the vocabulary of the English language. Maybe there is in like Mandarin or something that would do it justice, but not in this language. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited for the fans, excited for Detroit to be able to watch a team that's doing something that nobody's ever done.
Team of destiny. All right, Andy, that's all we have for you, but we really appreciate your insight into the 2024 Tigers, especially with your perspective as somebody who has played on the biggest stage in the biggest games. As of now, the Tigers have a spot in the postseason. We'll see if they can hold on.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
Everyone, that was Andy Dirks, former Tigers player and current TV analyst on Bally Sports Detroit. There's more to discuss about the ongoing postseason run for the Tigers, but first, let's take a break.
All right, we're back. Thanks to Andy Dirks. Would have been fun to have Jason Benetti on with Andy Dirks, but maybe next time. So let's discuss what players deserve the most credit for what may have happened in the last 45 days. Got a pretty good list. So let's riff a little bit about first. Let's talk about Tarek Skubal.
I mean, supreme dominance. Like, what more is there to say about this guy? He's going to win the American League Cy Young Award, and he very well could be starting game 1 of a playoff series as well. Those are things that, he wanted at the beginning of the season. I remember in spring training, I asked him in spring training about, the labels of being a Cy Young candidate, being an ace. And he said that starting game 1 of the playoffs would be more meaningful to him, and he might just get his wish. He might have to pitch game 162 against the White Sox if the Tigers need him. But if not, again, he's lined up to start game 1 of a playoff series. And you feel pretty good about going 1-0 to start things off when you have Tarek Skubal on the mound. He's been as good as it gets. I mean, there's nobody better than Tarek Skubal on the mound in baseball. You could argue Chris Sale for sure, and I totally respect that. But what he's been able to do, going back to when this run started, 2.16 ERA, like that gets the job done for sure. In 7 starts, no doubt about it. Tarek Skubal is the real deal. He is the it factor. He is him.
He's a 10. And the versatility that he brings to every start, I don't think people really comprehend sometimes how much he's able to change the strategy of the day based upon what's working for him. He had virtually no changeup last start. Just started pumping heaters one after the next. If you follow StatCast, he had a 38% CSW on fastballs, which is just otherworldly when you throw a lot of them. He is one of a kind in Major League Baseball right now, aside from maybe Chris Sale. So Dirks is the guy. All right, let's talk a little bit about Riley Green. I don't think people realize how many runs he snacked in the last 30 days. Yes, he has some off days, but he just seems to come up with the big hit almost every time they need it, especially in late inning close games. What's your thoughts about Riley?
Yeah, let's not forget Riley Green missed some time. I mean, he wasn't with the Tigers playing in games. July 25th was his last game. It was against the Cleveland Guardians. Then he didn't come back until August 18th for the Little League Classic against the New York Yankees. So played July 25th and then didn't play until August 18th. And so the Tigers started this crazy run that they've been on August 11th. They pick up Riley Green along the way, and it's a huge boost for them as he's been able to come back. And yeah, I mean, he's the guy in the middle of the order that is going to get the job done time and time again. It seems like whenever you need a big hit, Riley Green shows up. I love the fact that he's got the power in his swing too. 7 home runs in his last 30 games, all of those since August 18th. 21 runs driven in. You're right. He does go through his ups and downs. Sometimes ground out Green shows up. Sometimes strikeout Green shows up. Those are things that we don't love. But at the same time, he also packs a punch with his swings. And he also, when he's in that good mindset where he's drawing his walks and he's, being very selective, he's pretty much impossible to stop when he gets on those, 5 to 7 day tears. And if he can have a 6-day tear here to finish the season, the Tigers are going to be in really good shape as they look to make the playoffs. Riley Green is a difference maker. He's somebody that, when you talk about how the Tigers have gotten here, he's probably, right there at the top of the list with Dirks.
Riley Green's also going to have close to 600 plate appearances by the end of the season. And I think that's all you could have asked for when we jumped on in April. Going to appear in 138 plus games. All those things are important and good things. All right, let's talk about Superman, Parker Meadows.
I mean, what doesn't this guy do? I mean, it's all the time, nonstop with the glove and with the bat. And even if the bat goes cold, the glove is always there. Look at what he's done, changing the course of games, especially during this stretch that the Tigers have been on. This was a guy that got sent down to AAA Toledo earlier in the year. He makes a swing change and he adjusts the way that his swing is. He felt like it was too steep and too uphill. So now he thinks down on the ball as opposed to thinking uppercut, trying to hit the ball in the air. It's more thinking hit down on the ball and everything else takes care of itself. So it's an approach adjustment and it's a swing adjustment with where he was holding his hands. And it's made a world of difference at the plate, but the glove just has never wavered. He does not stop making plays, robbing home runs, diving catches. He's very smart in the outfield. Even in a moment too, like go back to the first game of the series against the Orioles where the ball drops in right between, Parker Meadows and Kerry Carpenter. It was the very first pitch of the game, goes up in the air and it drops. And it was a play that Parker Meadows should have called off Kerry Carpenter, should have taken charge. He won't make that mistake again. I tell you that. He won't make that mistake again because he's a smart center fielder who knows what he's doing out there. He's going to take charge. He's done it time and time again. And again, it's robbing home runs, diving catches in the gap. He chasing down balls that like nobody else should be able to get to. And he's able to get there because he has elite sprint speed. Parker Meadows is a difference maker. He's saving the Tigers on defense. He's also helping them out on offense. Going back to August 11th, 36 games. He's got 4 home runs in that stretch. Only a 20% strikeout rate, drawing walks at a 7% clip, hitting .261, 113 WRC plus. He has been an above average player since August 11th. You can't ask for anything more from Parker Meadows, and the defense is just phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Speed and defense never sleeps, baby, and he brings it every single day. Anything he contributes on offense is a bonus, and he's contributed a ton. Let's talk about the Swiss Army knife, the guy that, pretty much is unhittable these days. Tyler Holton, I think he's given up 4 runs in forever. 2 of those occurred in Baltimore and weren't even his fault. Let's be honest about it. Tell us what it's like watching Tyler Holton every day.
Yeah, going back to August 11th, we keep referencing that date, but 19 games, Tyler Holton has pitched in, starting 4 of those games as an opener, throwing 26 and 2/3 innings. So this is not just a 1-inning guy, as we all know. He's someone that can go multiple innings for you. He can start games as an opener. He can close games because he's got 4 saves as well. So when you have 4 opens and 4 saves in 19 games, pitching 26 and 2/3 innings, and oh, by the way, you have a 1.01 ERA during that stretch, you can't ask for anything more than that. You can't. That's near perfection in a variety of different roles. That speaks to the calmness of Tyler Holton on the mound. He's got that calm heartbeat. The moment is never too big for him. There are certain guys on this team that I still feel like, the heart races a little bit more. Tyler Holton is a guy that in a playoff series with everything on the line, ball in his hand, I'm still trusting him to command all of his pitches. I don't think the moment gets too big for Tyler Holton. I don't think things speed up on him the way that they might for other players. Tyler Holton is calm. He is steady. He gets the job done no matter what role. 4 saves, 4 opens, 19 games total, 26 and 2/3 innings, 1.01 ERA, all going back since August 11th. He's been a huge difference maker, a big reason why the Tigers have been able to do what they're doing.
By far, the best move Scott Harris has made in 2 years was claiming Tyler Holton off waivers. What a difference maker. All right, last, Kerry, Bonds, Carpenter, 2 big home runs yesterday, and just a threat every single time he gets in the box. Yeah, there's a day or two where he's not really getting on top of the high fastball, but let's be honest, there's been some huge home runs this last week.
Kerry Carpenter slugs, that's all you need to know. This is a guy who, since August 11th, hitting .301 with 9 home runs in 32 games. All day.
All day, Kerry Carpenter. All right, before we get out of here, let's touch on one really important thing. If, in fact, or when, in fact, the Detroit Tigers make the playoffs, who is their most likely first-round opponent?
How about the Houston Astros? How much fun is that going to be? The storylines just write themselves. A.J. Hinch would be going back to Houston to face the team that he used to manage, the team that he won the World Series with in the Houston Astros. In the American League wild card, that would be the Tigers as the 6th seed, the Houston Astros as the 3 seed, winning the AL West. That seems most likely right now, which would then set the Tigers up. If they were to win that, it would set them up for a date with the Cleveland Guardians, which would be so much fun because Guardians, Tigers, Cleveland, Detroit being so close. I mean, that would just be an incredible atmosphere, especially being right down the road from each other, not too far. You would have fans from Detroit traveling to Cleveland, fans from Cleveland traveling to Detroit. That would be like one of maybe the greatest environments when you pit those 2 teams together, considering their location, considering the fact that they're in the division together. But to get there, the Tigers would have to get through the Houston Astros. That's their most likely opponent for the wild card series. All 3 games would take place in Houston. Whoever wins 2 of 3 gets to move on.
Well, I don't really care who we play. I just care if we play. Been saying it all year. That's the bottom line. So, Ev, all I can tell you, I'll be behind the plate for Dirks tomorrow night. I'm so excited to see what happens these last 6 days. Been our longest podcast of the year. And guess what? It should have been our longest podcast of the year. We have so much to cover, but it's time to get out of here, buddy. So I want to remind everybody to please rate, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. I don't really care where. And you can always find us embedded in every Evan Petzold article at thefreep.com. They're pretty much giving away a digital subscription for an entire year. So spend $9 or $12, or if you don't have it, hit me up. I'll give you the money. I'd like to thank our Free Press editor, Nicole Avery Nichols, our producer, Robin Chan, the magic man, Robin Chan. I'd love to my grandson. Rumor has it I may see him this weekend. And shout out to the spectacular, as always, Savannah Petzold. Till next week, when we're a playoff team. Peace.